Good afternoon. Welcome to the webinar organized by Forum Energii, devoted to the state of Polish energy sector and its transition. Well, it's our annual webinar that is based on data driven from the report Polish Energy Transition that is already published both in Polish and English. This year marks the 8th edition of the report. Our analysts and experts prepared many interesting findings, so let's move straight to the presentation that will be divided into 3 parts. The first one, it will be a general overview presented by Tobiasz Adamczewski, Vice President at Forum Energii. Tobiasz will give a short introduction and explain the context in which the report was developed. Then our 2 analysts and authors of the report will present energy sector data. It will be Kacper Kwidziński, who will discuss on national power system, and later Marcin Dusiło will focus on emissions and energy resources. The third and the last part, it will be question and answer part. So we encourage you to submit questions. They will be collected and displayed at the end of the webinar. My name is Maria Niewielko. I am Communication Director at Forum Energii, and I am pleased to moderate this webinar. So Tobiasz, the floor is yours.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you again for joining our webinar. As the data will show, the energy transition in Poland is well underway. We've been doing quite a bit of progress. One of these symbols was June of this year, when we saw that renewables surpassed the amount of electricity produced. It was more from RES than it was from coal. This is because of all the new additions we have of the capacity of wind and solar. Another thing that happened recently is that we see that the government is done preparing its national energy and climate plan. The highlights of this plan were introduced yesterday by the Ministry of Climate and Environment. And what we see is that that the future is an extension of what's been going on in the past couple of years, and this is what we will be showing you during the presentation. However, there is one thing you will also notice in our presentation, that there is a very slow uptake in onshore wind capacity. And this is going to be a major issue in the Polish energy transition context and in developing the National Energy and Climate Plan. So we know that the law, which is going to help permitting for new capacity in onshore wind, is prepared. This law is going to go to the new president, and hopefully he will sign it. And in a few years' time, when we meet again to show the statistics, hopefully we will see quite a bigger number of gigawatts in the onshore wind capacity. This is necessary for the whole transition to go forward and for the prices to be acceptable. So without further ado, thank you again for joining, and I am passing the floor to Kacper Kwidziński, who will go through the power part of the presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tobiasz. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm glad I have this opportunity to present you just the portion of our findings. We will show you a brief presentation that shows a part of the graphs you can find in the full report. So we will start. The first part will be the national power system. So here the first graph is the electricity generation mix. As you can see, in 2024, there was still the dominance of conventional sources, mainly hard coal and lignite. You can see that the natural gas is making its first big steps, as its share in generation mix was over 12%. And the bigger role in the electricity mix every year is from renewable sources. If we want to look closely to renewable, you can see that the majority of that is from onshore wind, and after that, photovoltaics. We also have some power from hydro, biomass, biogas, and biomass co-firing. As Tobias said, June was unusual for Polish grid, as for the first time in the history of Poland, the electricity from renewable sources was bigger than electricity from coal. The graph shown here is from our monthly magazine. I encourage you to look into that as well. The biggest share of renewables comes from photovoltaics and wind farms. These are weather-dependent renewables, and as you can see here on the slide, their share in production and consumption can vary from close to 0% to over 60% share in production and a little bit below 80% in consumption. These values can be different because if we have oversupply of the energy, we import it abroad. As I said, when we have oversupply of the electricity, we can export it abroad, but the operator has also different tools to deal with that. And for example, it can store energy and encourage the demand side to consume more electricity. And when these two...
There's one gentleman says that people can see the charts.
Can you see the charts, everyone? Sorry. I will try to maybe show it again.
Yes, they can see them. Okay.
Okay, thank you very much. Sorry for the trouble. Okay, so if these tools aren't enough and we still have oversupply of the electricity, the operator is forced to cut the generation from renewable sources. We call it non-market redispatch in Poland or curtailment. And in 2024, this curtailed energy amounted to 730 gigawatt hours. And that's 10 times more than in 2023. So the amount is getting bigger every year. And in the current year, 2025, in the first 6 months, we already exceeded this amount. So if we predict that the trend will continue, we predict that at the end of the year, we will curtail around 1,600 gigawatt hours of energy. And that means also that we don't use the cheap electricity from renewable, and we have to exchange it for the more expensive fuels as gas and coal, as we cannot lower them below a certain point. And that expensive energy costs us about 260 millions in 2024. As I said, the grid operator has some other tools. He can also store the energy. In Poland, the battery storage sector is growing very slowly at the moment. It's having its baby steps. And as you can see, the capacity of the battery storage is under 10% of the total storage, and most of it is prosumers installations. So the household installations that are lower than 50 kilowatts per installation. Poland, as I said, we can export the oversupply of the energy, but Poland usually imports more energy annually than exports. And in 2024, we imported 2 terawatt hours more electricity than we exported. And when we have a closer look to the specific countries, we can see that we import the most from Germany and export the most to Czech Republic and Slovakia. 2024 was a very unusual year when it comes to the cross-border transmission because we exported more power to Ukraine and Lithuania than we imported. Let's have a look at the changes in achievable capacity in 2024. So here you can see on the graph that we didn't lose almost any of the achievable capacity, but we got 4.4 gigawatts in photovoltaics. After that, we got new power in natural gas. It was only one big investment. And after that, there is new power in onshore wind. But as Tobias previously said, the potential is much bigger, and we lack some progress with the wind farms legislation for that. Let's get into the consumption of electricity. So as you can see, in 2024, the total consumption was not very different from the previous years. The total consumption over years is staying on the same level. And when we want to have a closer look into consumption structure, we unfortunately do not have data for 2024. We have data for 2023, so I will show you that. The industry sector is consuming the most electricity in Poland. After that, there are households, but it is 2 times lower consumption than industry. And what is also interesting on this slide is the gray part. It is the power plant's own needs. And it shows that the plants that we use, the conventional plants that use coal, that use natural gas, they need some electricity to power themselves, to generate electricity, for example, for pumping water. And if we assume that we will change our electricity structure into more renewables, this gray part will be lower and lower, and leaving more space for electrification of the sectors. Let's jump to prosumers of energy in Poland. So at the end of 2024, we had a little bit over 12 gigawatts of power in prosumer installations. As you can see on the graph, the biggest jump of this capacity was in 2021, 2022. And after that, every year, the growth was much slower. And so the big conclusion that we have is that the growth pace is decreasing every year. And similar situation is with heat pumps. So the new source of demand that is more and more important in the system. As you can see, there was a big growth in 2022. It was over 200,000 installations bought, but every next year the growth was much lesser. So in 2024, there were new 80,000 installation, and in total that makes over 700,000. Most of the heat pumps in Poland are air water heat pumps used both for central heating and hot water. The situation is different when it comes to electric vehicles. So here, as you can see on the graph again, in 2022, we got new 24,000 of electric vehicles. In 2023, new 37,000 electric vehicles, and in 2024, 43,000. So every year the growth is bigger and bigger. And it means that at the end of 2024, we had over 140,000 electric vehicles. And at the end of this part, we will look at the spot electricity prices. As you can see, historically, the spot electricity prices were among the highest in our region, the region being our neighboring countries and Sweden. And it is due to our coal-heavy generation mix. You can see that in 2021, 2022, there was a big increase in the prices due to the crisis and war on Ukraine. And after that, in 2024, the prices decreased, but they are still on a much higher level than before the crisis. So they are now about 40% higher than before. Thank you very much, and I give floor to Marcin Dusiu.
Good afternoon. Thank you very much, Kacper, for handing over the presentation. So the last slide that Kacper shown was about electricity prices. Now let's take a closer look at why those electricity prices also might look that way. So as it was already discussed, Poland relies heavily on coal, on more and more on natural gas, but the most heavily on coal right now. So some part of the story is what happened with prices of natural gas and coal in also in Poland and in other markets on the multi-year scale. So as you can see, gas is getting more expensive. I mean, this is compared year on year. So here you can see three lines for three, let's say, sources of natural gas. One is the yellow one, the cheapest one. This is the LNG price in the US ports. As you can see, it's all the time low, more or less. And there are also two very high, very spiky mountain-shaped curves, and they represent natural gas prices, but here in Europe. One of them is for TTF, so like whole European market, and the other one is Polish gas market. As you can see, they are very clearly linked together. And compared to what's happened before the war, those are now around 60% more expensive than they used to be. And so they are both on the pre-war timestamp, they are more expensive, and also year on year they are also more expensive. On the other hand, coal is getting cheaper year on year, which is the decrease of 34% for Polish coal and 14% for the, let's say, European coal that is in the Netherlands port. But still, the coal is more expensive than it used to be before war, and which is one of the most important information here, Polish coal is still more expensive than the European one, which means that we, and it will be visible on the next slide, we tend to import more and more because our coal is more and more expensive. One of the reasons is that we don't really have a lot of coal left. So the deeper you dig, the more expensive it gets, the more time it takes to just transfer yourself as a miner to the place where you work. So the amount of coal extracted per miner lowers. So yeah, here we can clearly see that one, hard coal use is getting lower and lower. This is mostly due to what happens in the power sector. So more and more advanced decarbonization. It might be not where we would wish it to be, but we can clearly see that the role of coal is getting lower and lower. On the other hand, we can also see that the extraction is getting lower, and it's getting lower in a faster pace than the consumption. And so that means that in order to fulfill all the needs for the Polish economy, we have to import more and more from abroad. A couple of maybe metrics. So right now the consumption is around 50. So in 2024 it was 48 million tons. Mining is 44 million tons, which doesn't seem like a big change compared to what was 10 years ago, but compared to the highest point when Poland extracted coal and exported, so that used to be around 200 million tons. So as you can see, like the vast majority of coal extraction has already been closed, and the remaining part is visible here. The natural gas consumption, on the other hand, is increasing. So during the first months and first years of the war, the natural gas consumption has significantly lowered in Poland, mostly due to the fact that it was just basically very expensive, as you could see on the chart 2 slides ago. Right now, it's still more expensive than it was on the pre-war times. But on the other hand, our electricity system has needs, and the coal generation is getting older and older. So therefore, as you saw, as Kasper has shown, the natural gas in the power sector plays a bigger and bigger role over time, and this is the main driver behind the increased consumption of natural gas in Poland. The consumption year on year has increased by 8%, and over 10 years it is a 20% increase. And we can compare it to the plans of the NECP, so National Energy and Climate Plan. For those of you who are not from the European Union, this is a document that is universal for different countries in the European Union, and there it has to be stated what are the plans for the future when it comes to powering the country, basically. And the highest consumption in that is in this document is 25 billion tons, billion cubic meters. Right now it's at 19 billion cubic meter. So as you can see, there is still quite an increase in the future years, but it's not very dramatic. And here I have to say personally, this is one of my favorites. The favorite charts. This shows very clearly that our economy, so the Polish economy, depends more and more over time on importing energy, basically, from abroad. So the 45% of energy that was used in Poland had to be imported. And this is overall energy, but we can focus on different types of energy carriers. And for natural gas, that was 82%. And for crude oil and derivatives, that was 97%. So this is also the part why we see very clearly that the energy transition is going to increase the energy security, because we won't have to rely that much on the energy that is imported from abroad. This chart, or a series of charts, it shows how the Polish economy and Poland as a country deals with meeting its needs when it comes to different energy carriers. We are going to discuss steam, coal, natural gas, and crude oil. And beginning with steam coal. Oh, and one more general remark. So if you see something in red, it means it's Russia. So as you can see, in 2015, Poland used around 65 million tons of steam coal. So basically, that's the sum of imports and domestic extraction, and majority of it was from domestic extraction. That's around 60 million tons, and the remaining, more or less, 5 million tons was from Russia. In 2024, there is no more coal from Russia, and it's not only 2024. It was like this the year before also. The domestic extraction was down to around 33 million tons, and the rest was imported mainly from Kazakhstan and Colombia. For natural gas, as you can see, 10 years ago, half of what Poland used was brought to Poland by pipes from Russia. Around 9 billion cubic meters was imported from Russia, and the domestic extraction was around 5 BCM. Right now, in 2024, the domestic extraction is lower, and it's like the stable trend. It's getting lower and lower over time. So the domestic, which means in the borders of Poland, on the Polish land, more or less. That's quite important, and I will get back to it in a second. It has lowered to 4 BCMs, and there is no Russian gas in Polish pipes. The biggest supplier from outside was Denmark, and by Denmark I mean Baltic pipe. So basically, from the balance point of view, it's a gas that is extracted on Norwegian shelf of the North Sea and transmitted through pipes through Denmark to Poland. So from the statistical point of view, this is Danish gas, but it's extracted by Polish companies on the North Sea. There is also, so 2015 was one of the last years when we had no LNG in the mix, and in 2024, as you can see, around half of what was available for Poland went from LNG terminal, and a little bit less, and majority of it came from the USA and Qatar. For the crude oil in 2015, as you can see, like the consumption didn't really change over time, so it's more or less the same, 26 more or less million tons, both in 2015 and 2024. But the share and where does the crude oil come from has changed significantly. As you can see, in 2015, from Russia was over 80%. Right now, it's 0%. But there is another dominating supplier, basically Saudi Arabia, providing more than the half of crude oil to Poland. So here we can see like the whole picture of the diversification, and I mean, to me personally, it's a measure of maybe a bit of a success that we were able to cut this very big supplier who was Russia, and diversify our sources of energy. The second part, of course, is not fully resolved. So like the growing dependency on imports, but at least the suppliers are more diverse. So there was a lot of imports, a lot of countries, and we pay also a lot. In 2024, the cost of importing natural gas, crude oil and derivatives, coal, and also fuels. And by fuels, I mean this what you fuel, what you can fuel your car. So liquid gas, gasoline and diesel, and also jet fuel, or aviation fuel, basically. That was in Polish 112 billion zloty. So it has to be divided more or less by 4.4, so around 30 billion euro. And this, of course, has decreased compared to 2022, when the prices were extremely high due to the energy crisis. But still, I mean, it doesn't really change anything in the fact that it is around 100 billion zloty that is sent abroad year on year. Most of it is right now crude oil. In 2022, it used to be, of course, natural gas. And when we see again, red is Russia on the right panel, you can see that in 2015 the majority of the energy, of the invoices for energy sources were sent directly to Russia. Right now in 2024, only 1% went to Russia, and this is due to the liquid gas import. But right now there is an embargo, so in 2025 we have like 0.0% of imports from Russia. That was a lot of charts in petajoules, in BCMs. Right now, let's switch to megatons of CO2. So basically, we're going to talk a bit about emissions. Poland in 2024, it is estimated that emitted around 350 million tons of CO2, which is less than it was in 2015 by 9%, when it was 383 million tons. So on one hand, I mean, one can argue that there is a change, but on the other hand, the change is not that fast-paced. The biggest share of emissions, so 34% comes from the energy sector, so basically power sector, more or less. We talked a lot about coal, and a lot about the dependency on energy and emissions and so on. So here you see it all mixed up in the in form of how much CO2 has to be emitted in order to produce 1 megawatt hour of electricity. And if you calculate it for all of the EU countries, then Poland has second biggest this factor of 614 kilograms of CO2 per 1 megawatt hour produced, generated, which is more or less 3 times more than the European average. And there are lots of countries who have more advanced energy transition, and the Polish emissivity of electricity production can be 10 times bigger than, for example, that of France. So yeah. Sticking to CO2, we emit a lot, and in order to be able to emit, we have to have the allowances for emissions. So the ETS system, and each maybe simplifying a bit for those of you who are not familiar with this system, but more basically in the power sector, if you want to emit 1 ton of CO2, you have to buy. In other sectors, it's not that straightforward. So, for example, industry also is under the ETS system, so has to be part of this of the measuring and reporting system, but they don't have to pay. They have free allowances. But for the power system, power sector, almost everything has to be paid. So it is important to note a couple of things on this topic. One is that the average EUA, so the price of the allowances, was at 65 more or less euro per ton of CO2, which is 2 times lower than the forecasts of how much the EUA is going to cost. And according to the European Union, in 2024, it was supposed to be 118 euro per ton. So that is one interesting fact. And another interesting and quite scary fact is that Poland, the gain of Polish budget was measured in 123 billion zloty in the time range from 2015 to 2024, and it was supposed to be not fully, but it was supposed to be invested in the energy transition, and we know that it was not fully done this way. So right now there is one last chart, but this one is quite complicated, as you're going to see in the end. So it is sliced so that you can see more. Here we can see the changes of different things compared to its values in 2004, so when Poland joined the European Union. As you can see, GDP in constant prices, so we don't see the inflation and so on. In constant prices, it has doubled during those 20 years. Greenhouse gas emissions, on the other hand, has been lower, so it is possible to decouple the GDP increase, so like the economical development from greenhouse gas emissions. Let's take a closer look on how the energy consumption has developed. There are for natural gas and for crude oil, the increase is more or less of 40%, and more or less of 40% is a decrease of coal consumption. So we can see that we switch powering the our economy more from coal to natural gas on one hand, and on the other hand, we just use a lot of more transportation and burn a lot more in cars, both because people keep buying SUVs that burn more and more, and also because the public infrastructure, of transport infrastructure, just like in all of the Europe, is not that connects not that well the smaller cities, so people have to drive cars in order to get somewhere. Here is the energy consumption, so not the energy carriers as on previous slide, but energy as a whole. So as you can see, the energy consumption has increased by 7%, and the electricity consumption has increased by 18%, which means that the amount of the share of the electricity fueling the economy has increased. And meanwhile, the share of non-renewable energy consumption has decreased by 10%. And here is the promised slide in its full shape. I guess that you understand right now why it was sliced. But as you can see here, the energy transition is, I mean, it's in the process. Basically what we can draw from this is on one hand, it is possible to increase and develop economically, while also lowering the emissions and coal consumption. But the problematic thing is increasing natural gas dependency and increasing crude oil consumption. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Marcin and Kacper, for this exhaustive presentation. And now we move to the last section, that is question and answer section. And I know that already we have some interesting questions, so we will wait for the first one that you will see in a while. Can I ask the question here, of course? For example, how much percent of photovoltaics capacity is from prosumers compared to commercial solar farms? Are they behind the meter prosumers taken into account? And the answer will be given by Kacper.
Thank you for the question. I'm not sure about the second part of the question, but I can answer the first part. So right now in Poland, I checked it up in our monthly magazine. We have 23 gigawatts of photovoltaics in general, and 12.4 of that is from prosumer installations. So it's a little bit over 50%.
Thank you, Kacper. And the next question. As 20% electricity consumers are in the category others, what could this category represent? So Marcin will answer.
This category that is both, lighting in the cities, or how much school consumes, or a mall, shops, offices. So this, I think that the biggest categories in the others are the ones that I mentioned.
Thank you. We move to the third question. And are grid constraints one of the drivers of the slowdown in prosumer and heat pump growth? In many countries, growth in these technologies is constrained by limits to the distribution network. Tobias will answer.
Yes, thank you for this question. Also, there was a question about whether we consider the behind the meters in our calculations. We do, although these are some of our own estimates. So in the report you will find what the consumption is, and it does include behind the meter. Now, coming to this question, the grid constraints, no. In theory, at least, if you want to become a prosumer or if you want to install a heat pump, then you will be connected to the grid. However, there are moments and places in the grid where there's quite a few prosumer installations. And if there's a sunny day and there are many buildings that are producing electricity and not consuming it at the same time, then we do have moments when the installations shut themselves off for security reasons. And this is becoming a bit of a problem for the prosumers, because obviously this is a constraint for the remuneration of the power that is being put into the grid. A way to alleviate this is, of course, building more local and home battery storage systems, or changing consumption patterns. And in terms of heat pumps, I haven't heard of any problems in terms of being able to connect them in your houses. If you need bigger ones, then yes, you need approval, of course. But this is something I guess we will be monitoring in the future while the heating system is being changed.
Thank you, Tobias. I think we have two more questions. Yes, next question you can already see. Is Poland considering the introduction of made in EU or by European requirements in public procurements for renewables like wind or solar, such as some other EU member states? Thank you. And again, Tobias will answer to this question.
Yes, thank you for this question. So Poland is considering to renew its support scheme for wind and solar, basically the auctioning system, because this auctioning system is only going to last for another year and a half. So we know that the government is already preparing new regulations, and they are looking into how to make these components, or how to make these auctions more friendly for EU manufactured components.
Thank you. And we will see another question. Is Poland facing difficulties connecting new batteries in time? Again, Tobias will answer.
Yes. For right now, we have, I think it's about 4 gigawatts of new batteries coming in online from the capacity market. We will need more. The NECP also stipulates that we will need more, and it shouldn't be that big of a problem with getting them in on time, especially if the TSO and the DSOs cooperate. There is something that needs to change in regulations, because batteries are still being seen as a producer of energy from the perspective of the grid. So this is a regulatory challenge that will need to be faced in the near future.
And we go to the next question. That is, my question is related to volatility in the spot market? Are there moments of the day with negative prices due to the excess of photovoltaic generation? Kacper will answer.
Again, thank you for the question. Yes, in fact, there are many moments during the months, especially now in the summer when there is a big amount of electricity from photovoltaics. And in June, especially when we had also a big generation from wind power, then yes.
Some more question. How does the cost of carbon credits compare to the energy prices? And is there any impact for end consumers? Martin will answer.
That's a very interesting question because it touches like the heart of the discussion for the energy transition in Poland. So on one hand, yes, of course, it is visible component of the final electricity price. But on the other hand, higher electricity price, higher a component with a bigger share, which is quite uncommon in our region, is the distribution fee. So when for the whole invoice for the electricity, around 50%, sometimes more, is for the distribution alone. So yes, on one hand, it is a part of the invoice, let's say, of the electricity price, but it's not the most important one.
Thank you. I can see we have a lot of questions. The next one is what infrastructures upgrades, if any, are planned to support planned nuclear deployment into the 2030s? Again, Martin.
Northern Poland seems a bit like one big building place because there are many investments that are done there. This is both from the transmission grids, but also there is a planned DC cable, the first one that is going to be on land because we have DC cable, but connecting us with Sweden. There is going to be a DC cable from northern Poland, where it's going to be a nuclear power plant, but also a lot of offshore capacity and offshore production going directly to middle or southern Poland, where there is right now the majority of industrial consumption. So yes, there are investments.
Thank you. No question regarding heating sector. Thanks for the great presentation. Thank you. What are incentives for large-scale heat pump installed by district heating companies in the effort to decarbonize district heat supply? Tobias will answer.
Yeah, thanks for this question. I also wanted to get back to the one about ETS, because I remember that in one of our recent reports, we see that the cost of ETS in the final cost for the consumer is about 11%. So and this dropped also because we have more renewables in the system, and it will probably be lower in the future. Of course, it also depends on the prices of CO2. If you go into our webpage, we have our monthly reports. You can see there in the charts what the cost of CO2 permits or allowances is in producing electricity from coal and from gas. So that can also, if you're interested in that, you can also check it out. As to the heat pumps, the large-scale heat pumps, I think there is a program, International Fund for Environmental Protection. If it's not running yet, then it should be running soon from the Modernization Fund. But also, just as a sneak peek, we will be having this type of report that we have for the power sector. We will have one for the heating sector, and it's going to be in September. So yeah, keep in our newsletters, and we will invite you for sure, and we will have much more information about the heating sector.
The next question, which reforms and investments do you see as key to unlocking further progress in energy transition in Poland in coming years? Maybe Marcin will answer.
What Poland needs right now is a lot of new generation units that might replace the old coal fleet that is going to be will have to be shut down due to the purely technical reasons. I mean, you cannot drive 6 million kilometers on your Toyota, and you cannot have your coal power plant working for 50 years. So there's the end limit, like the maximum age that the electricity power plant might just sustain, and a lot of Polish power plants are reaching this limit. So Poland needs a lot of new capacities. That is on one hand, and of course that, I mean, it's this is the effect that we need. So there on one hand need to be investments, but on the other hand there has to be like the whole of the regulatory framework that makes it possible. So for example, right now the investments in onshore wind farms is restricted more than we are certain it should be, and therefore it stopped. The onshore capacity expansion has it's not as fast as it should be. It was stopped in 2016, and the regulations are not fully fixed yet. So we need on one hand acceptable regulatory framework for investors. On the other hand, we need regulations that go hand in hand with what Poland is going to need. So we are going to need a lot of electricity for electrification of transport, of industry. So there has to be both incentives on the demand side. There have to be also incentives on the supply side. There have to be incentives both financially and regulatory for the flexibility. So there is still a lot of work to be done. But I would say that like the biggest right now push is for expansion of new capacities, but those capacities that are really fit for our needs and for our place on Earth. So we shouldn't also increase our energy dependency, for example, on natural gas too much.
Thank you. And we have the last three questions. What is the situation of social acceptability, social license, and issues such as not in my backyard? So Tobiasz will answer.
So if you look at opinion polls, then people in Poland will say that they like renewable energy, that they want transformation, and that it's a good thing, and that it's not happening quickly enough. However, of course, people do want to be listened to when permitting these types of installations. So this was one of the major issues with wind turbines, where the permitting law before 2016 for wind turbines was too lenient, and some people didn't like the way that they were developed, and then it was abruptly stopped. It was used as a political tool. So now, many years later, almost a decade later, we're still waiting for this permitting law to be changed in a manner that will allow for new installations to go online. And some of the major elements of this new law are that, of course, there will be public consultations, but also there is this participatory element where there can be money paid to people who live in close proximity to the wind turbines, but of course not closer than 500 meters anyway. Plus, there have to be done tests to make sure that the noise of the wind turbines isn't too high, and that it's not disturbing the birds. So this is going to hopefully change this law, and then we hope that the developers will make this more sustainable than in the past. In terms of photovoltaics, yes, we heard of some protests, but this is not a big issue in Poland.
The next question. Thank you for your helpful explanations. Against the backdrop of your report, what significance do the recently reported discoveries of oil and gas reserves of the Polish coast have? And Marcin will answer.
Answering directly, not high significance. So, of course, it sounds like a lot, 22 million tons, 5 billion cubic meters. Those are the recently discovered reserves. But when we put that into context, this 5 BCM is around 1/4 of the Polish consumption yearly, and those 22 million tons, if we take into consideration that all of the sources like this are that the extraction there takes decades, that means that Polish dependency on oil imports might decrease from 97% to 94%, basically. So in such a context, it doesn't really play a significant role.
Thank you, Marcin. And last question. Slide 27 mentioned carbon emissions from electricity and heat production and from fuel combustion in households. The former is centralized, large thermal power plants, electricity production in cogeneration modus. Marcin.
Yes, in those categories, heat production means centralized heat production and not in individual heat production. So this fuel combustion in households, the individual heating is in this category, but also in this category is, for example, the fuel combustion for cooking, for example. But yeah, the district heating plants are within the electricity and heat production category.
Okay, so it was the last question. Thank you very much for being with us. We can see that the discussion was interesting. We exceeded a little bit the time. The full report is already available on our website. The presentation from today will be available by the end of the week, and the recording of the webinar will be also available in coming days. So We wish you a great day full of good renewable energy, and we hope to see you soon on our next webinar. And stay with us, read our reports, and we hope to see you soon again. Thank you very much.